most people don't realize that as you're building a profile, if you go down that profile very slowly, things like location, titles, companies, degrees, when you start typing in those little boxes, there's a drop-down box that appears.
Yep.
That drop-down box is called a market value filter. That is what everybody else would call that.
Welcome to the Making Sales Social podcast, featuring the top voices in sales, marketing, and business. Join Bryn Tillman and me, Bob Woods, as we each bring you the best tips and strategies our guests are teaching their clients, so you can leverage them for your own virtual and social selling. Enjoy the show. Kevin D. Turner joins me today in the Social Sales Link virtual studios here on Making Sales Social. Kevin is celebrated for his trademark approach to eliminating personal branding, which in and of itself is trademarked, and equipping professionals with the sharpest tools to amplify their LinkedIn presence, resumes, bios, profiles, everything that you can think of, which encompasses the thing that I have typed in here and beyond. So there's even more than that going on. Kevin has also taken it upon himself to be, in my mind, the leader of documenting LinkedIn's changes and improvements. His LinkedIn posts are worth following for this reason alone. Combine this with all the other great content that he publishes, and you'll have a great quality addition to your LinkedIn feed. So with that, Kevin, welcome to Making Sales Social.
Bob, thank you for having me. I love being back. It's exciting. And so much going on in the world today. So
you are back. We should do the SNL jackets for like two timers, because you're one of a handful so far. It's probably going to end up happening more. Jacket, you are a jacket guy. If you're watching us on video, absolutely. Kevin is nattily attired, as opposed to me looking like I'm ready for the football game that's happening tomorrow. So our first traditional question of all of our guests, and you may remember this from the last time you were on, is what does making sales social mean to you?
Making sales social, I always look at it as it's a really kind of a magnetic force you create that draws people to want to do business with you. And you do that through establishing that trust, establishing the relationship. You know, it can be done with a lot of personality. It can be done with a lot of personal information. It can be done a lot with just what you provide the community. And I'm one of these, I give away a lot. And
you do.
People always like, how do you give all that away and people still come and do business with you? And I always say that is the science, right? Science is, math and those kind of things. That's the science. If you give it to them for free, they'll come back for the art. And that's what I do. I do the art part, right? I get all that tied together. And, it is, again, a relationship that I build with people, and they tell other people. And I have people who just show up from nowhere and say, I want to work with you in the process. Yeah. And so I know it works. And, to me, it's fascinating. I did a presentation at Sony, and this was turn of the century, right? In the 90s, turn of the century stuff, like Victorian, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A consultative sales presentation. And consultative sales is kind of somewhat part of social selling, right?
Yeah,
in the sense you got to listen. You got to listen. You got to do a little talking as well. It's a two-way conversation to get to where you both need to be. And if it doesn't lead there, that's fine too, right?
Yeah.
Find out where they can lead you from there. Find out why it's not getting you there. All those things have great value. It's not always the sale, right? Sometimes it's what we learn along the process that makes that worth the time. And so there are no easy fixes in sales. Unless your product is really easy, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which at that point is a commodity, and probably 1,000 other people are doing it too. But I think you hit on something important there, in that social is a two-way conversation, and a lot of people don't realize that, because a lot of people think as social as just like another broadcast channel, which other people do use it as that, but those are people who are not in sales. Those are people who are not needing to develop relationships, I think. And so, you can't think of social as a one-way type of thing, and you're only looking at metrics and things like that, which we'll talk about metrics a little later. But you can't look at that as your success. I always say if you get 1,000 views on something and you get no conversations, it's a failure. If you get 30 views on something, but you get 2 or 3 sales conversations out of it, it's a success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are vanity metrics, right?
Yeah.
They don't pay the bills.
Right.
You got to be reaching the right people with the right message and giving them a reason to kind of follow behind you in that process.
Yep.
So many forget it. I actually love the fact on LinkedIn, people are always talking about my reach is down on my posts. And a biggest piece of that is the way LinkedIn looked at this is LinkedIn is not a place just to post content. It's a place to create conversations.
Yep.
And those whose reach have just dropped to the bottom are those people who are not engaging in a conversation. If they get a comment, they do what I call a drive-by comment. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Boom, and they're out. They don't add any value. They don't ask a little more questions. They don't develop that into what anybody could see just on a digital side. That's a conversation ongoing.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
So to me, that's the beauty about LinkedIn is it is a social site, whereas most social media is less social. Right. Here it is about social, and they reward you when you do that.
Yeah, could not agree more with that. Could not agree more with that. So that actually kind of leads into my next question in a little bit of a different way, because LinkedIn is apparently, and it depends on who you talk to. Some people think of this as a consolidation. Some people think of it as eliminating. Just depends on what you're talking about. And we're talking about LinkedIn's audio rooms. Yeah. So first of all, just for those who are unaware, why don't you just give your quick definition of what a LinkedIn audio room is?
It's a digital conversation place, right? Where you can join a group and you can speak openly. And for a long time, it was unrecorded because this was supposed to be ephemeral kind of conversations, right? You're not supposed to be worried that anybody's recording it. And just amazing. It built. I joined, I think it was, can't even think of the name of it, during COVID. Clubhouse. There you go.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. I've even forgotten the name. And we had incredible meetings there. People like to talk. People like to listen. People like to learn. And that group of people that I worked with in that process, ours was called Fab Four. We actually became like a family, and we're still really, really tightly connected. And it was because of all that kind of communication. LinkedIn was there on Clubhouse watching this and saying, we're going to create this within this monstrous platform called LinkedIn. We're going to insert it, right?
Yep.
The problem with LinkedIn is it was never designed to do what it does today. And that's not that they didn't have the foresight. That's just kind of code, based on code, right? It was designed to be a database, basically, of resumes to sell to recruiters in the process. That's why they separate us at 6 degrees of separation. They only give us 3, right? So they can sell the other 3 to us, or you to the other 3. That's the basis of that platform. Putting something like this inside the platform is much more difficult than it is to create a platform that just does audio events. And LinkedIn really thought that as soon as they put it on LinkedIn, it was going to explode, right? Everybody was going to do it, just like Clubhouse. They were a little late to the game. And
they were.
The other component about LinkedIn is it's almost like having a conversation at the water cooler at your office. That's different than the conversation you have at the pub, right?
Yeah.
Clubhouse was the pub. Everybody needed to talk. Everybody needed to say things that you couldn't say at work, right?
Yep.
I'm depressed. I'm this. I'm that. I got to find a way, to get something else going. Whatever it was, it's not stuff you would say at work. LinkedIn is work in a sense of the way the community is built, the way people could come into that room and see you in that room. And recording that was always a big issue. LinkedIn didn't want to record it just for that fact. the most popular audio events were about job seeking.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm currently employed and I'm in this job seeking event and I've got my hands up, how do I do this while working? And
Well,
my
yeah.
boss is in the room, that's a
Yep.
problem. Or if he comes
That's
back
a big
later and
problem.
he could listen to a recording and find me in there, because it's not hard
Yeah.
to see who went where. And that was the big issue LinkedIn had when this didn't take off. And
Mhm.
there were some brilliant people behind us, and I know that they had the right vision. They were even going to go into video events where instead of that still picture of us talking, it was actually going to be video as well. So you could have 16 videos up on stage.
Yeah, that
That
would
to
have been
me
cool.
is really kind of cool in that
Yep.
process. They had a bigger plan, but because it didn't just take off,
Yeah.
LinkedIn basically defunded it. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
this year, it was years ago.
Right.
So that whole group disbanded. Some left, some went to other places within LinkedIn, and issues started to happen. Oh,
Mm,
my event's not going off when it's supposed to go off. I couldn't
yes,
log in, right? Nobody could hear me. Well, we know
I've
about
heard that. Yeah.
that. you know, all these tech issues, and LinkedIn's going,
Yep.
well, we funded this thing and nobody wanted it. Now everybody all of a sudden wants it. And then the other thing that they're hearing from everybody on LinkedIn is, oh, this thing would be spectacular if we could record it,
Yep.
right? And if we
Yep.
could have a chat, flow, so we could
Right.
conversation besides the comment tab, which was kind of asynchronous to the whole thing.
Right.
That's what we want. And so LinkedIn's hearing, we let that team leave, right? We
Mhm.
haven't put the funding behind this because it wasn't that popular. Now we got to get a solution to give them what they want to make them happy. That was the option of, okay, we do this with LinkedIn Live. We have
Mhm.
third party streamers. We're going to do audio rooms with those third party streamers. So that's where they decided to solve the problem of what everybody was demanding, right?
Yeah.
To give them what they wanted. That was the only way they could do it because they weren't going to go back in and redesign the site to fit it. They weren't going to put more investment into it because it just the feedback wasn't there. The money stream wasn't there for LinkedIn, right?
Sure.
Think of them like a venture capital group. You
Yeah.
buy 10 companies, right? If two of them go big,
Right.
you could
Yeah,
drop
1 or 2
the
have
other
to
eight,
hit.
or
Yep.
you combine them into one, or you do something, you sell them off.
Yep.
But you're looking for the big winners, and the other ones you kind of let go. And
Yeah.
that's basically what LinkedIn is. It's kind of a venture capital within its own kind of social platform. It's looking to launch things that are hot. And if they're not, they're going to find either a better way to do it or they're going to get rid of it,
Sunset.
in
Yeah.
that sense, because all of this takes money to do. And audio rooms take bandwidth, right? And if they're not getting the right stuff back and they have to keep fixing the code that wasn't quite doing what it was supposed to do, they're putting money in and they're not seeing the benefit. So this was the perfect solution. So sometimes we have to, I guess, appreciate what we have and
Mhm.
stop asking for more all the time, right? Because we pushed them so hard for more. We took something that we all liked and
Yeah.
enjoyed. Now we don't get it in the same format. We've got a little extra hassle we've got to go through now to do this. And
Yep.
so the big changes is in the new way of doing this through live process, right? You have to have a third party streamer. So you got to
Right.
join that.
Yep.
You
Pay
do
for that now.
gain the fact that you can record it and you
Yep.
will have this little chat room, just like all lives do on the side that people can interact with, right? That's already built in. So you
Mhm.
got those bonuses. The minuses are you've got to then have the speakers click on a link and go into that streaming app to be able to join the stage. And we
Yeah.
still don't know. We know right now with audio, the stage is limited to basically 16 and a host.
16. Yep.
It will be the same going forward, but we don't know if that's 16 for the whole event or if it's just 16 at a time. Right now, it's up to 16 at a time for audio events. We don't
Right.
know because the wording isn't as good as it should be that we
Yeah.
have. So we don't know if
Imagine
that
that.
is going to be the same, but there's going to be that extra hassle of clicking the link. Now, you've got the platform, you can put the link right in the post and everything else, so people know where to find it. They'll be able to
Right.
click in there. The host will still be able to say, hey, that's Bob, let's bring him up, right? So the process is going to be very similar from what I can tell. It's just
Mhm.
going to be that little extra step. Instead of raising your hand, you're now going to go click on a link. I
Yeah.
think people will get over it. And if they really wanted recording, then they
They
kind of
can.
got what they want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really interesting way to look at it because there are a lot of people out there who are running around with their proverbial hair on fire about all of this stuff, and I think that you're just saying to calm down, let's see where things shake out, and then set your hair on fire if you want to.
Yeah, taste it before you condemn it, right?
Yeah,
You got to get there before we can really find out, is it really all the bad things that we think it is? And
yeah,
the other piece of that is, a post that gets people angry always does better than a post
oh
that
yeah,
might get people thinking, oh, well, that's kind of cool. No, you want them fired up and I'm going to tell you everything I know, and I'm
yeah,
going to tell you how the cow ate the cabbages, the whole thing. Those posts always do better. So I think people have a tendency to go to the negative when
yeah,
something like this happens. And I
yeah,
always say, calm down. We don't really know all the details. We just
right.
know some of them. And we've got to get there before we can have those kind of conversations that everything is dying, everything's done. There's no more audio rooms, boom, 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 right? We've got to get the real information before we can say that.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is definitely a work in progress, and you know, stay tuned, learn how to do it because it does sound like that there are going to be more steps involved, and let's see what happens. It may end up being better.
You never know. Every one of those streamers might bring something more to the table.
Right, yeah, and that was the other thing that I was kind of thinking in the back of my mind is how do the stream yards and how do the restreams of the world react to this and maybe develop stuff on their own side so that people can use it through them and just kind of pipe it through LinkedIn, and so there may be more developments on that end as well.
Absolutely. And I've already got they're involved already. They've been involved for a while in this process. So I've got
That's good to
a
know.
meeting hopefully set up next week with one of them to go through what it would be like when it launches. So I'm
Okay.
hoping to have more information on that.
Okay, so depending on when this episode drops, and I am going to try my best to get this moved up in the queue because we got a lot waiting right now. But I definitely am going to see if I can do that. Go to Kevin's feed because I'm sure that Kevin will have more information when he is available or when he can talk about it. I guess is probably the best way to do it because some of the stuff might be hush hush, and Kevin's a good guy. He will not talk about things before he is allowed in air quotes to
Yeah.
talk about it. So yeah. So good. Well, yeah. So that's kind of the big thing with Reverb happening on LinkedIn right now. Are there other significant changes you can think of that have come down the pike lately that you see as either helpful or potentially hurting people when they use LinkedIn?
Well, I would say one of the things that is really going on at LinkedIn right now is they're spending time cleaning up the spaghetti wiring, right?
Yeah.
The site that created itself not with a plan in mind, but adding
Yeah.
pieces, right? They're cleaning that up. And that's why sometimes when you get on LinkedIn, it loads a little funny and it looks a little different when it loads now. It's got like a kind of a chromium
Mhm.
look to it. They're
Yeah.
cleaning up the wiring. And hopefully, the way they're doing it sets them up to be much more adaptable to new features. So that's I think a big piece. The other one is in somewhat conflict with what just happened in audio rooms, and that is native video. So it is
Hmm.
already beginning to happen.
Yeah. Oh
If
yeah.
you have an Android phone, you can now go straight to video and basically create a video right live onto LinkedIn and post it.
Yeah.
So, that's a different piece. So this ability to do live video will change quite a bit. So third party streaming won't be necessary for lives.
Yeah.
What does that mean for audio events? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
It makes it confusing, but we know that they're putting native video into process now. And I think that's got huge opportunities
Yeah,
in
it
the
does.
long run. So very excited that that's going on. The other thing I always tell people is you got to start thinking about LinkedIn as a database and as a business, right? It's got a million or a billion, pardon me, 300 million profiles, right? A
Yep.
profile is actually a resume, believe it or not. In the code, it is coded as a resume. You used to be able
Hmm.
to print somebody's profile and it would say resume when you downloaded it, right? That's what it
Yeah,
is. LinkedIn's business is selling members to other members.
sure.
Its biggest single customer is Recruiter.
Yep.
They are 65% of the 17 annual billion-dollar revenue, right? They're
Hmm.
$11 billion. And one of the things is you got to think about LinkedIn as a database in this sense. When it gets that large, you've got to fit the database to be found in the database.
Yeah, because it gets
And
unwieldy.
most people don't realize that as you're building a profile, if you go down that profile very slowly, things like location, titles, companies, uh, degrees, when
Hmm.
you start typing in those little boxes, there's a drop down box that appears.
Yep.
That drop down box is called a market value filter. That is what everybody else would call that. And if you select the market value filter, now you're sortable in this huge filing cabinet of a billion plus files, right? Now
Yeah.
people can find your file. If you end up typing your own stuff, it'll accept it. It won't tell you you're wrong, but you just kind of put yourself in the other category, right? The shelf back by the bathroom.
Right.
You put all the dusty, dirty, dented stuff,
Yeah.
It's not where you want to be. So make sure that you're embracing those market value filters in this process. And if you do, has huge ramifications. If this site has that largest customer, everything is really built around servicing that customer, right? Makes sense. If we had a store, 65% of our business went to one type of customer, we'd align the store for it, right? They're doing the same
Hmm.
thing on LinkedIn. When you become the perfect product for that customer, then other things happen on LinkedIn. When you post, it goes further. When somebody's looking for you, they find you easier.
Yeah.
So, embrace that. And most people don't. It's not a new feature, right? But it's
Right.
new to
Yeah,
most people.
exactly. Yeah.
Most people never really thought about LinkedIn as a database, as a business, and do we fit as the perfect product so they can promote us? And so that's, I think, really key.
Right. Yeah. And that actually takes me back to when Microsoft first announced its acquisition of LinkedIn. And I was on, was it an investor call or maybe a press call or something like that? I forget what, but Microsoft just came right out and said one of the big reasons why that it bought LinkedIn was because it considers the data that it has on all of its members to be some of the most accurate data out there, and they wanted that data, and they recognized this back in, when was the purchase,
Oh, yeah.
2016, 2017, something like that. So I mean, this was years ago, and LinkedIn has just exploded in terms of its user base since then. So that's a really keen observation there, I think.
To me, it's fascinating to think that they know the accuracy of the data is there. It's because it incentivizes us to get it right, right? We're making
Yep.
choices. And so
Yep.
we're providing that accurate data. We're not going to provide stuff that's not accurate because what is the old expression? Sunlight is the best disinfectant, right?
Yep.
We're not going to claim we did $1 billion in sales if we didn't do $1 billion in sales because somebody's going to call us out. So they know
Right.
the data is going to be accurate because we've got to be comfortable with it in the sunlight, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big piece of it. But to me, the concept of that accuracy is based on what we provide. And yet on LinkedIn, they try to serve us with what they think we need. As opposed to 10 years ago on LinkedIn, you used to pick what you wanted. So in your feed, you used to
Yeah,
pick
that's
categories.
true.
I want to see things about financial business, or I want to see things about insurance, or whatever it was, or I
Yeah.
don't want to see insurance and financial business, right? You could take that out of the check mark.
Yep.
It was a much more accurate site. So I wish LinkedIn would take the same approach the value that we created as individual members, allow us to create that same value for ourselves in what you serve us. Because then we're doubly rewarded to come back. But it doesn't sound as, I don't know, it just doesn't sound as sexy, I guess, right? to ask somebody what you want, as opposed to saying, I can create the AI that will give you what you need.
Right. That will give you what you need. And then sometimes it just is
Based on
wildly
what I
off
think
the
you need.
mark. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, based on, cross fingers is what you need there. And
And then you
and
throw
yeah,
in the revenue component of that.
and
Also, what you need that
I'm
somebody's paying me for you to need.
I was just going to bring that up because I just read a recent study saying something that advertising in the feed is like up to as well, which I'm sure you probably noticed. I certainly have noticed it.
Well, know what you do? Go into your privacy and settings. There is a component for advertising, and take
Yeah.
all the buttons and take them all off. You'll
Yep.
go from having 5 ads out of 10 posts to having 1 or no ads out of 10
Right.
posts. It's an immediate effect. If you tell them, I don't want to have all this served to me, they're not going to do it.
Yep.
Which makes sense. So most people will go in there and they'll find they've got all that stuff checked, thinking, I'm going to be a
Oh yeah.
good member on LinkedIn. I'll take all your stuff. Well, they got too much stuff now. So we had to
Yes.
be good members to ourselves and go in there and reset that, do that, and that feed will clean up. Now, one of the things that I love about LinkedIn is there's always different ways of using LinkedIn. And
Hmm.
the smartest thing, and I started doing this many years ago, they give you a lot of search filters, right? So you can go in, you can set these search filters up by, last 24 hours. I want fresh stuff, right? You can set it up by location. You can set it up by industry. You can set it up by authors.
Yeah.
That's a great little search tool, but then don't leave it there. Bookmark it. Give it a name, right? I've got target clients. I've got prior clients. I've got authors that I like. I've got insiders, people inside LinkedIn that I like to keep up with. And I can
Mhm.
click on those bookmarks and immediately get only their posts, only in the last 24 hours, no ads. Plus,
Yeah.
in that stream, different from your normal stream, if I want to comment or react, it doesn't take me out and I have to come back in. It just keeps me right in that same stream. Much more effective way to use LinkedIn. And then, the key is there, you're creating these content lists. You got to make sure every now and then you pop your bubble, right? and you go back out into the open feed, swim in the open ocean, and see what else is out there. You might add a few more names or a few more things to those bookmarks, right?
Yeah.
And that's the other nice thing about it is once you click that bookmark and it opens, you can then adjust that bookmark. You can add a couple more, right, in the process. And you save again, and it's still designated as the same bookmark.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it can grow,
Exactly.
expand, shrink, whatever it needs to do. And that's, a brilliant way to use LinkedIn that LinkedIn's never going to tell you because they lose advertising revenue.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And and that's all done because whenever you do a search, it creates a static, unique URL. So
Mhm.
and the other nice thing you can do, and we do teach bookmarks as well, but you can bookmark something, send that URL to someone else, and
And they
then
need
they'll be able to use it too. Now it'll be filtered by like their first degree connections and everything else. So they're not necessarily going to see the same thing that you do, but you can give them, a really good feel of whatever your feed looks like or whatever it is you're trying to do with that feed with the search filters just by sending them that URL.
Yeah. Oh, and I have people all the time who say, who are the top 10 people I should follow on LinkedIn about LinkedIn?
Yep.
And I'll send them that URL and I'll say, bookmark it.
Yep.
And they're going to get those, even if they're outside of their third degree, they'll still be able to get the posts
Yes.
in that process if it's author based.
Right.
That
Yeah,
is
that's true.
fantastic.
That's a
I don't
good
have to
point.
go through a list. I don't have to give them 10 links. I give them one and say, bookmark it, click on it every day. You'll have the best of the best. So it's
Okay.
about using the system, I guess, a little smarter.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So yeah, and LinkedIn will never tell you any of this. So
Again, again, it kind of circumvents that revenue stream. So
Yeah.
they don't really want us out there talking about it, but that's what we do.
Right. Yeah. It's like with the hashtags, with them not being as promotive, I guess, of that. I'm
Mhm.
not exactly sure, but was and I think I heard this from you. If it wasn't from you, it was definitely from someone else. But one of the reasons why that they are supposedly allegedly depreciating hashtags is that it takes you away from LinkedIn's algorithm. And in
Yeah.
other words, it takes you away from LinkedIn's control. And guess what? LinkedIn doesn't like that.
No, there's money in control.
Yep.
You have to eat what they feed you, or you change the feed, and the hashtags change the feed. So if you
Mhm.
search by a hashtag or you click on a hashtag, you're going to get just that, and they've
Yep.
lost control.
Yeah.
It's why they are doing their best to push them down, make them believe. And then there's always those same people who panic, right? As soon as something
Yeah.
happens, the world's imploding. They got rid of hashtags.
Yeah.
They love that.
Yeah. I'm sure they do.
They encourage that, they cultivate it because it gets done exactly what they need to have done. And that was get less people to use hashtags so we can make more money by controlling the feed. So,
Yeah.
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 No, it's always anytime you look at it from the other side, right? The old follow the money equation, a lot of things that happen on LinkedIn, they start to make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Usually look at them from our side, right? Oh, it's a social platform, all this great stuff's going to go on. I'm going to make connectivity. And so they're like, why'd they do that?
Yeah.
That doesn't help me. This is not about
Yeah.
helping us. We're the
Right.
product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We are the ones that if you're not buying something and you're using a service, you're the one being sold. I mean,
And
that's
that's why if you really think about it, until you get into like Sales Navigator or Recruiter
right.
or beyond, there is no phone number for a member to call. There's no
Yep.
person for the member to say, hey, I'm having some trouble. It doesn't exist unless
Yeah.
you're into paying the larger dollars, right? Those become the customers. The rest of us members, even if we're premium, we're not a
Right.
customer yet because all we get is premium chat, which is now
Hmm.
kind of they're practicing their new AI robot chat,
Yeah.
and it's kind of wild.
Yeah. LinkedIn's AI is definitely it's like I never used ChatGPT like 3 or whatever, but I feel like that it's like at that phase right now as opposed to, 4.0 and oh 01 or whatever that's called or things like that. It's just, it's just getting started. I'm sure it's going to get better. I can guarantee you it's going to get better.
and I
It's
and
just
I
it's
think
not
that
there yet.
the biggest issue was it was trained, I'm sure, on previous help interaction, which
Mhm.
LinkedIn help, that's an oxymoron. That
Yeah.
word, right? It doesn't actually help most of the time. And I remember there was a time where they always say, "Well, did you unplug your computer and plug it back in? Did you,
Yeah.
clear your cache? Did you stand on your left hand
Right, yeah.
and balance your computer with your right foot?"
Yeah.
They had just crazy stuff they would put you through the mill for, and they were like, "Are you sure this is really happening?" Like you're trying to just soak up their time, right? With fake
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah. So if it's been trained on that, that's not a good start point. Data
Right,
in,
yeah.
right?
Right, yeah, and then if you're a premium member, you have access to AI to help you write things like headlines and about sections and things like that, and as of right now, and AI is still growing and things like that. This isn't a criticism because, like I said, I'm sure things are going to get better. It's just it's not there yet.
Yeah. And the biggest issue with that is that whole headline and about section rewrite AI called Enhance, that was launched very early.
Yeah,
The issue with LinkedIn is their owner, right? Microsoft
Microsoft.
has always put this quarterly bonus out there for new feature development. They don't
Oh,
have a quarterly bonus for fix the old features. So once they release, they rarely fix them unless they can call it a new feature.
right.
Right. And so whatever you get at the time, that's probably going to stay like that until basically they drop it off because they say nobody wants to use it. And that's what
Mhm.
happened with that particular piece. It is rotten at best, right? You can take
Yeah.
a very creative headline and it will turn it into title at company.
Yeah.
You
Oh
can
yeah.
take a
Oh yeah. I
really
can't tell you
creative
how many
about
times.
section and it'll write something you can't even read.
Right.
So no,
So
and that's the biggest issue is this kind of their bonus to create new features. They're not bonus to fix old ones. And that's why you don't see, messaging could be a lot better,
yeah, mess
should
so
be
much.
a lot better, but it's an old feature. So I'm not going to get a bonus on that. I'm going to spend my time here in the bonus zone. Can't blame the people in charge, once they've been handed those marching orders.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's really interesting. I did not realize that about the bonus structure. So maybe the AI won't get better, but it's got to get better. I mean, they've got to realize. I mean, especially
I
because
think
they are hanging
it'll
so much
probably
on
like
AI.
that one, it'll fade off and then they'll come back with it again as like a whole
They have
profile
done
writer.
that before. Yeah, they have
It'll come
done
out
that.
as a whole profile writer, and hopefully then it's the latest, greatest, and it's actually going to do some value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they've already started that with the resume rewrite tool. So they're using AI to do that. And it's actually doing a decent job,
Yep.
not an incredible job, but much better than that Enhance ever did. So you can upload resume and it'll help you tailor it for a job position. So I think the profile is going to be next in that same kind of what they've learned in that process. That way, Enhance will go away and it'll be a full profile fix. So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
next.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, something. There is improvement that is needed there, and
Mhm.
hopefully hopefully that will happen. So with that, I hadn't necessarily planned on just sticking on just LinkedIn stuff for this entire conversation, but something, you get two LinkedIn salts together and you put live mics in front of them, and that type of thing just tends to happen. So just so you can talk really quick about the other thing that you quite frankly make money off of, let's talk about personal branding really quick, what that is, and how people can benefit from what it is that you do in that specific mindset.
Absolutely. I started with kind of giving out guidance on how to build your LinkedIn profile, right?
Hmm.
Many years ago, I used to do, settings where you had 600 people in a room, they're all in transition. I was teaching them how to build those LinkedIn files. And in the process, what I found was that people were just taking everything they had and shoving it into the profile, right? Calling that a brand. And what it was just a mishmash, unorganized Jack and Jill of all trades shoved in there, right? So, because I want every opportunity to come to me. So, I'm going to shove everything I know in there. And that's what they were doing. And that's where I came up with that term of personal branding.
Hmm.
They basically had blanded themselves because nobody's going to sort through that kind of pile of, right? They're not going to sort through it and pick what they need if you don't deliver it in a very, very focused way and what leads you forward to your goals. They're never going to accept it. They're not going to dig through it. Our moms might, right? But the rest of
Right.
them, they're not going to take the time to do that. So
Yeah.
that's where personal branding came in. And I always have a famous line that nobody hires Jack and Jill of all trades, right?
Yep.
Masters of none, unless you're running a convent, right? So that's it.
I love
Those
that.
are where
That's
the
great.
masters of nuns go. But we got to realize that, and that's part of what I do. I help get that message right to get them to where they need to go. And a lot of that comes into play. It's not just in the textual form, right? Because that's important, but it's also the visual. Everything from the background banner to the picture to how things flow to how you incorporate in particular colors to stimulate things, where you use emojis, what kind of emojis, all that stuff comes into play. There's a lot of psychology behind what makes somebody devour content. And
Yep.
if you're not putting that into that profile, you're losing a huge opportunity. So
Yep.
those are the kind of things that we like to do. Things as simple as what direction do you face when you are taking that picture, right, for your profile. If you're looking
Mhm.
straight on, and that's what most people do, that's the easiest picture. I can grab it, click it. I can make passports and driver's licenses from it. It's a huge
Yeah.
ID theft issue because you're giving a lot of information I can also use, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. So we always have a term, it's called one ear, and that's a government photo term, believe it or not. If I can only see one of your ears, then I can't use that as an official document photo.
Mhm.
If you're going to turn just a little bit, and it could be as little as 5%, doesn't have to be cheeky like mine. You know, doesn't have to be that far. I just do that
Yeah.
anyway. But just making that little turn then also changes the direction on your profile. And people don't realize, I look at some of the LinkedIn experts out there, and half of them have it wrong.
Yeah.
And what they're
Yeah. I
doing
probably
is they
yeah, so
turn a particular direction, and they're either looking off their profile or they're looking into their profile.
Mhm.
Classic advertising, right? You open up
Yeah.
an old magazine, you see the car in the
Mhm.
middle. If the people are looking away from the car, you're not interested in the car at all.
Right.
They're running, right? If they're looking and staring and looking, moving towards that car, now you're interested.
Yep.
So some of those classic principles have to exist within that LinkedIn profile. And people don't like that feeling of, you kind of productize things,
Mhm.
but it's tapping into those bits of knowledge from advertising, from psychology, everything else that really, really set a profile up to make somebody want to devour it and reach out to you. And that's
Yeah.
key. And that's what we do.
Cool. Cool. So, along those lines, I always love those immediate takeaway, one thing you can do right now types of things. So to get them from personal, to get them started, I guess is probably the best way to do it. From personal branding to personal branding, what's like one thing they could do right now to help them get started on that road?
I think get focus, right? Understand what you do well, what they want to pay for, right? That's always key. And focus towards that. So the profile shouldn't be just a chronological dump of everything you've done. That's blanding, right? It
Yep.
should be a focus to move you forward. So
Yep.
somebody gets there, if they devour that content, they want to know, I know exactly why Bob's here. This has all
Hmm.
been building to this point where we need to have him do this for us.
Yep.
That's the main thing that you need to start. And then everything else fits. When you start picking backgrounds and you start picking pictures, does it fit the focus? If it
Yeah.
fits the focus, it's going to get you farther down the line. And so
Yep.
that's the kind of things I think is the first start, is to figure out what is that focus? Where do I want to be?
Hmm.
And
Okay.
then everything else will start to line up, and then get rid of the stuff that doesn't fit. People
Right.
have it, they have a real problem with that. But if it doesn't fit, it's not going to help you. I look at, I've been doing sales for 35 plus years. It's
Hmm.
different than what I did 35 years ago. I'm not going to
Yes.
put
Yeah.
up something that is 35 years old anymore, right?
Right.
The natural, I guess, timing of any skill is usually within the last few years, last 10 years at max. You're in cybersecurity, it's probably the last 30 minutes, right? So make sure it's timely, and focus it, and have it move you forward, but also make sure people are hiring for it, because
Yeah.
I've seen people focus stuff that nobody's going to hire for.
Right. And hire for also translates over into the sales side, and people are
Mhm.
buying, obviously. So
Absolutely.
the
It's,
same
yeah,
thought process
same
everywhere.
concept.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, Kevin, how can people find out more about you and maybe even reach out to you?
I'm always on LinkedIn. So it's Kevin D. Turner. I throw the D in there because there was a guy at Microsoft, a legal guy at Walmart, and a football player. I now out SEO him whenever you put Kevin Turner in, but it's Kevin D. Turner. You'll find me. Easy end to the URL. I picked it very early on. So it's just like everybody else, linkedin.com/in/president.
I
I
love
come up
that.
with every search on LinkedIn for president of LinkedIn. That's me.
Nice.
At least digitally,
Nice.
right? It has
Noise,
value.
I would say.
That's where you'll find me. And then I've also got a channel on YouTube called Keep Rocking LinkedIn. You can look it up by Keep Rocking LinkedIn, or you can look it up by Kevin D. Turner. And there's 90 videos in there. There is some stuff that will change your world on LinkedIn, and definitely get in there. I always think it's a master class for free. And I'd rather somebody be knowledgeable at that level before they come to me, because we can do so much more when they've got
Yeah.
the right base set. And so that's there and available. Love people to join in, subscribe, follow. I always say do that first before anything. And if we start to engage, we might connect.
You never know. I love that. So, branding and LinkedIn strategies expert and tracker of as many changes as he could find on LinkedIn, Kevin D. Turner. Really, really appreciate your time today. It's been fun.
Absolutely, Bob. Thank you.
And thank you for streaming this episode of Making Sales Social. So remember, when you're out and about this week, be sure to brand yourself effectively, keep up with LinkedIn changes, and make your sales social. Don't miss an episode. Visit socialsaleslink.com/podcast. Leave a review down below. Tell us what you think, what you learned, and what you want to hear from us next. Register for free resources at linkedinlibrary.com. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play. Visit our website, socialsaleslink.com, for more information.